All right, we're good to go. The word balance is a buzzword, and that's been all the buzz for a number of years now regarding how to live life and how to keep the balance right. But what does that even mean? And is it even possible? Because when I think of balance, I think of a teeter-totter, and at any moment you can fall off. And honestly, when it comes to living life, I prefer the word harmony. Harmony takes time to achieve. Sometimes your life is in harmony. Sometimes a few notes are off, but you're still moving forward. You are multitasking. And the majority of us, let's be honest, we're all doing a number of things at once. So if it sounds familiar to you, I'm sure a lot of people can relate, because it's very familiar for me, and it definitely is for my guest today. She has managed to create harmony and multitask in a world-class way. And you will understand why I'm using the words world-class momentarily, but stick with me. She and her husband have built their own business. It's called Track Athletics. She has 3 children. She is fiercely dedicated to her fitness regime and in unbelievable shape. And she is a 2-time, yeah, you heard me right, 2-time Olympian for the Canadian women's softball team. And just recently, wait for it, she's been invited back to pitch for the team for a 3rd year for the upcoming 2020 Olympics in Tokyo. Oh my goodness, this is a powerhouse woman. She also has a story that is brilliant, inspiring, and powerful. And I cannot wait for her to share her journey with all of you today. I'm so humbled to have the amazing and accomplished Lauren Regula stepping into the inner circle with me today. It's so great to see your face here in our Zoom call. You're joining me remotely from
Akron, Ohio today.
And
Thank you for
that is home for you now, right?
Yes, yep.
Yes.
It's been home for the last 5 years.
You know, Lauren, me being me, I want to jump right in and talk about these latest developments regarding the Olympics, but I'm not going to. I'm going to pause, and I'm going to make our listeners wait for it, because your journey leading up to this is worth every single second of conversation. So I want to take you back to when you were a little girl growing up in Trail, BC. And I mean, I have to ask, what the heck is in the water in Trail, BC? Because your town has produced world-class athletes.
It's actually pretty crazy when you think about it. There's been a ton of NHL athletes. I've been to a couple Olympics. My brother played Major League Baseball, and it's crazy. It really is. I attribute it to 2 things. One, there isn't a ton to do. It's a very small town, and everybody there just plays. And they play without a motive. They play because they love sports and they love being outside. And it is a huge hockey town. Hockey was huge in the 50s, and it brought a great team, the Trail Smokies, the Smoke Eaters. And that infiltrated this teeny town of 7,000 with these amazing athletes.
I love how you just glazed over the fact that your brother Jason played Major League Baseball. Can you just tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. My brother, Jason Bay, he played for about 10 years Major League Baseball. He was the 2004 Rookie of the Year, Silver Slugger. He's been in 3 All-Star games. He's amazing. I love him. I always say he's a better person than a player, and that's saying something after his career. But yeah, we both grew up just extremely active. Really, there was no thought of, hey, maybe Jason could make it to the majors one day. That was not even in the equation. And the same thing for the Olympics for me. It was the questions we were always asked is, are you having fun? Do you love it? And that was about it.
See, that's so powerful. So tell us about that. Who instilled that in you, and what kind of sports did you play? Because you said you always played. You played everything.
Yes. So my parents, they were teenage parents, and they didn't know what really to do with us. They were kids themselves. And so they just played. They played with us all the time. My dad and my mom were both like instrumental in never pushing us to go hard in a sport, but always pushing us to get outside of our comfort zones and try new things. Because I remember my dad said to me, one of these years when I was little, I didn't want to curl like a good little Canuck. I just was like, I just don't want to do it, Dad. And he said, Lauren, you want to do everything because one day all your friends might be curling and you don't want to be the one sitting on the sideline saying, oh, I can't go because I don't know how. And that really stuck with me. So we grew up, we ate in the winter, we curled, we did, baseball, softball, basketball, volleyball, track, gymnastics, literally everything we possibly could. The times were a little bit different. Specialization wasn't a thing. And so when it was softball season, I played softball. Jason played baseball. When it was basketball season, we played basketball. And we had a love for the sport. My dad would always say, he never asked me to go pitch. It was always me. I was always driving the bus. And I just learned to love sports. I learned to do it because I enjoyed it, not because of anything at the end, of the path.
There's some big takeaways here for people listening and for parents with kids who have sports. What do you want them to understand? Because sports have changed so much. And I look at, I'll use hockey and soccer as examples where they're starting to develop the kids at such a young age, but it's not just develop, it's playing the sport year round and then only playing one sport. What are your thoughts on that?
I know as we have 3 kids now, and I'm just starting to get into this, I get extremely passionate. We need to let kids be kids. In our family, we want our kids to do as much as we can. The overuse injuries that kids are getting nowadays from all year round sports, and never mind that, the overuse injuries like into their brain, they don't want to play. There was a study that came out that said, the average age that kids quit sports is around 11. They just don't want to do it anymore. Mm-hmm. And it's so hard. If you want to be good at anything, if you don't enjoy it, when the times get tough, you're going to quit because there's nothing bringing you through. So I know for our family, when it is volleyball season, my daughter wants to try volleyball, and we're trying to take as least competitive of road as possible because we know that soon enough it's going to be crazy. We encourage her to try soccer. She played soccer. Lacrosse is coming up in our school, and we would love for her to do that. The boys are in basketball. I tell kids all the time when I do pitching lessons, if you asked me when I was 12 years old, I wanted to be a hairdresser in Trail, BC. That was my goal. You don't really know what you want when you're 12, right? Mm-hmm. You can change your mind because there's so much out there. So just allowing kids to find out what they love, not what the parents love, but what they love, and allowing them that space to take a break so they get that excitement back when it's time to play again. That is what's going to create longevity, not the day in, day out, because, it wears the strongest of people down, never mind kids.
It's such a powerful advice, and it's important to all of us who have kids. So thank you for sharing your perspective on that. I really appreciate it. Now let's go back to when you were a kid. When did pitching come into your psyche that, ooh, maybe I can do something with this? Because you're a lefty, right?
I'm a lefty, yes.
Lefty, correct?
I'm a lefty, correct? That's the funny part is people always ask me about, when did you play when you made it to 2 Olympics? And I didn't even start playing till I was 11. And it wasn't even my favorite sport till I was about 16 or 17. So when I was about 16, I realized, wow, I was doing pretty well at it. And I did get an offer from a team pretty far away in Vancouver. It was 8 hours away because our teeny tiny had run kids. And so at that point I was like, oh, if they're asking me, I must be okay. But with that being said, and this is a true story, we went to a tournament when I was 16, and my dad walked up to a coach and I forget what school it was. It was and he literally said, excuse me, yes, do you see that girl pitching right now? Do you think she can play in college? Like, we had no idea. We had, it wasn't like, oh, I'm really good. It was like, oh, do you think you could play Division I? Like, we were so just unaware. And so after that, he said, yes, I think she could play in college. But it wasn't until then that it kind of hit me. And I was 16.
16 years old. So that can affect the 16-year-old mind. Did it impact you? Did it overtake you? Or how did you process it?
No, I think, my dad let me know, like, hey, Lauren, there's some coaches here that think you can play in college. And I was just like, awesome, Dad. That wasn't a goal of mine. So I didn't feel like I nailed it, or I didn't feel like if they would have said no, I wouldn't have been crushed. I truly had no idea. So the answer was what the answer was. It definitely gave me hope in terms of like, oh, the light bulb went off, like, oh, wow, maybe I can actually do this. But it didn't sway me, hugely, because I really at that point was playing because I loved to play.
What role did your mom and dad play in this whole journey? I know your dad was big into sport, but what about your mom? How did they keep you grounded through this all?
That's a great question. I think so. I have the best parents ever. I love them. They have been a guiding light. They have been the most grounded people I know. I'm so thankful that they are my parents. They did drive me 8 hours to go to a home game. And again, that was on weekends, but they would drive me 8 hours. We would jump in the car Friday after school. My dad would drive 8 hours. My mom would be in the passenger seat. I'd be sleeping in the back. And I would play Saturday. My coach would give me the first game on Sundays because he knew I had a long drive home. And then we'd pack back up the car and drive 8 hours back. And their support, and again, I'm going to reiterate this, they didn't do that because they thought I was going to make it. It was a great opportunity. They had no idea what was going to happen. And I wanted to play so badly. They were supporting me in a way that as a parent now, I'm just like, I can't even believe that. Mm-hmm. But they're the most humble people I know. My brother will tell you the same thing. Their whole kind of aura and the way I grew up is just do your best. That's all you can do. I never felt like I was, even when I was pitching really well, I never felt better than anybody. I felt like one of the crew. And when I did very poorly, I never felt that was a reflection of myself. I just they were very honest with me, like, hey, had your C+ game today. Let's go get them tomorrow. And everything was just extremely light. Okay. And I want to emphasize that because I know these days it's very easy to criticize kids and get down on them when they're not playing well. And, you see it all the time when you're at sporting events and parents are getting so frustrated and there's nothing you can do. And I had mentioned to a friend of mine that this saying has just hit home, and it says, when you criticize your children, they don't stop loving you, they stop loving themselves. And that's just something that if you think about it, I am taking that huge, especially into the sport area, because I just want them to enjoy what they're doing.
Okay, so you're pitching, you're doing well, your mom and dad are your greatest support system. I have to ask, why pitching? Why that position? Because you do a windmill throw. That's got to take some toll on the shoulder and the arm. So how did you fall into that? And what do you love about the position?
Well, one, I'm a lefty. So I think every time they see a lefty, they're just like, you should try and pitch. I actually wanted to be an outfielder, to be honest. I wanted to be an outfielder. And even through college, I hit and played outfield when I wasn't pitching. That was kind of where my love was when I first started the sport. And then, I was not good when I started pitching. I'm telling you, the amount of times, and if anyone listens from trail that has watched me as a kid, they will verify this. I had thrown the ball over the backstop so many times. I had no idea where it was going. I'm over the backstop. One time a umpire stopped the game, and instead of having someone else go run and get the ball, he was like, you need to go get that. Because you're causing all of these balls to go over. And so I just run out and, I I wasn't this polished pitcher when I first started. I was all over the place. But I loved having the ball in my hand. I loved being involved in every play. I loved having the feeling that it starts with me, and it gave me confidence. And that's kind of what kept me going. I had heard one time, always throw as hard as you can. You can always learn location. You can't learn how to speed up mechanics. And I took that full force. I mean, I just chucked and chucked as hard as I could. And eventually my body learned how to spot those pitches. But it took a long time, and it was very ugly for a while. But I loved just, kind of starting with the ball, taking a deep breath, and feeling like, I was able to help my team in a very, very important way.
I love that you keep saying, I love this and I love that. Something about you that I know in talking to you is you have, first of all, a sick work ethic, and you're fiercely dedicated. Like, where does that come from, even to this day in your life, with as a mom of 3 kids and trying to juggle it all, and to go back to that word of balance? Where does that unbelievable work ethic come from? Because you use it in all aspects of your life.
So no one's ever asked me that in that way. And the first thing that flashed into my mind is my upbringing. Like I said, my parents had kids. My mom was a teenager. The way they made it through life, you want to talk about hard workers and making ends meet. And I asked my mom, I'm 38 years old right now, and I asked her last time she was here, I said, Mom, how did you get us? Like, now that I have kids that play sports, I know they didn't have, much money. They were starting off, kind of behind the 8 ball.
Yeah.
They were both working. My mom went to night school so she could be home. They stretched. And when I see my parents and the way I grew up, I saw how hard they worked, and they worked just as hard at parenting. My dad would work 4 and 4. So he would be on 4 days, off 4 days. He would obviously have to sleep and catch up. But I never felt like, oh no, Lauren, I just can't do that. It would always be, you know what, let me rest up, and then let's get after it. If we wanted to play or go to a park or go play tennis, whatever it was. And they really taught me the definition of hard work. Trail is a, very blue collar town. Everyone there works their butts off. And I don't even know any other way to be.
Love it. Love it. And it's carried you well through life. Take us to the college years. So you're pitching. Where did you go to college, and how did the path take shape up to the Olympics?
So I went to Oklahoma State University, which is fantastic. I loved my time there. I grew as a person tremendously, as most people do when they go to college, learned how to do laundry and all that good stuff. But it was a little bit of a rocky road. I had no pitching coach when I started. I had some people come in when I was, 15, 16, 17 and give me tips or work with me for a short amount of time, but I never had a dedicated pitching coach. And when I got there, I was so excited and I was so green, right? I was just this raw, I'm just going to go in and do what everybody says. And I have a pitching coach. They had gone to the Oklahoma State had gone to the World Series the year before. It was a very, dominant program. And I took that a little bit too far. It was a very good learning. I listened to what everybody said and tried to do it 110% with no real feedback from myself. And I lost my way a little bit. My first couple years in college were tough.
Okay, wait, I need to pause you. What do you mean by that when you said with no real feedback from myself? You said you took it too far. What does that mean?
So I would listen to everybody, and even if it felt really bad on, say, my shoulder or my wrist or my leg, even if it really felt like it wasn't what I was supposed to be doing, I was not going to question a coach. I was just going to listen to what they said, and I was going to try and do it because they're the expert. And I did lose my way because I started to, I tried to do things that were not very comfortable, and all of a sudden all of my pitches went to crap. Basically, I couldn't hit a spot. I lost who I was. I couldn't remember how to throw my changeup properly because it was mixing in with some other pitches. And I didn't have the confidence to even say, you know what, that really is bothering my shoulder. Is there any other cue or tip or way that we can work around it? I just listened, took their feedback and went with it. And that was really hard. I had a really tough time. The other thing is we had more than one pitching coach on staff. And so sometimes I would, work with one and they would tell me one thing and then I would work with another. And so I would be told another thing. And so that was, one day I was working completely on a peel drop. And then the next day I was working completely on like a turnover drop. And so I was just lost. And by my third year, my coach kind of just let me be. She kind of just hands back, and she gave me, Coach Reb, she gave me great tweaks, but I didn't feel like it was anything major. And I could wrap my head around a tweak. And it was about my junior year that kind of clicked back. I was like, this is what I remember. And so my junior and senior year, I felt comfortable in myself, letting her know how everything felt. So it's really hard when you're coaching someone if you get no feedback. So I completely take that responsibility of, if you tell someone something and they go and do it and you don't hear anything from them, no news is good news. You expect everything is great.
Right.
And so I had a little bit more confidence in myself, and we were able to work together really well. And from my junior year on, my senior year, I just got better and better. I graduated, my last year was 2003, and I had made the Canadian national team. It was an Olympic qualifying year, so I was on that team. We qualified for 2004 Athens Olympics. And then 2004 was the Olympics, and I was on that roster as well.
Okay, you got to tell me, what was that like to go to the Olympic? What's it like to wear the maple leaf on your chest and your back and to represent your country?
This is actually a great question because I can answer it differently now as a 38-year-old mom of three. Back in 2004, it was a little bit surreal, but it was also the only thing I knew. It's like if someone gets up and goes to work every day and it's a crazy job, to that person, that's just what they do. So I didn't have this grand, feeling about it. I had a very business-like it's a tournament. I took it in. I have a million pictures. We enjoyed ourselves. But at the end of the day, the field is the same size. The mound is 43 feet away. The base is the same. I really tried to keep it, whether it was intentional or non-intentional, I tried to keep it not bigger than what it was. Because if you start doing something bigger, you're doing something you've never done before. I really tried to look at it like, yes, I know it's the Olympics, but we've played this team before. Everything's the same, and let's just get after it.
What were the nerves like?
I didn't have any.
None?
Yeah, I didn't. I actually was talking to some people this summer about that. That has never been anything that's really, honestly, it's probably because I didn't make it a bigger deal.
Okay.
Because I wasn't looking at it through this lens of a spectator. I was looking at it through the lens of an athlete. And I really just, the mound and the softball field is where I'm home. Like that is where I feel the most comfortable. And so to me, to get to run out on there, I was home. That's where I meant to be.
Wow. Okay. How did you end up doing? 2004.
2004, we took fifth, and probably where we should have ended up. So things played out. We had a great win against Japan, which we were a huge underdog. I mean, that was crazy. That win in itself was the biggest win at that point in my career ever. But we knew that we had an opportunity to get better, and we knew softball was in the Olympics for 2008. So that was our, when we were done, that was what we were looking forward to next.
Okay, so this has become your life. You leave the Olympics in 2004, Athens, and there's another goal in sight.
Yeah. Oh, softball was my life. 100%. I mean, all I did was that was my job. I played.
But define that for those of us who don't understand what it means to have a sport be our life. What is it like what was it like for you? And I need to ask this, is it different for a woman? Then you wouldn't know if it is for a man, but from what you saw around you, training, eating, all of that. Tell us what that was like for you.
I don't know what it's like from a man's perspective. I can tell you, I know what it's like from my brother's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that the nuts and bolts of it are the same. The workouts, I actually asked my brother if I could see his workouts, the workouts and just kind of what the off season means. And it does truly mean rest because, with Major League Baseball, there's a lot more games.
Sure.
So they need that rest. Mm-hmm. But even in softball, when you play a long summer, you need to take that time to recover. So the evolution of how the seasons go are very similar. Softball is obviously different in that you play, the girls that you see out there play because they love it. We're not making a full on living on it in terms of we do get some help, but it's nothing we're going to be doing when we're 45, 50, right? Mm-hmm. And so, nor is that money going to be able to carry us.
Right.
When you see the women athletes out there, and it's not a professional, or anyone, I should say, that's not a professional sport, it is solely for the love of the game.
Yeah.
And that to me is so inspiring. And that is what has really resonated with me right now. Because I see some women who have been on the team forever and you just know they're on it because they love it so much. Mm-hmm. But as an athlete, when you're training for a national team, it is, workouts, it is constantly, you have to be very careful with what you put in your mouth, because you can't just go take a protein shake from wherever. They do have random drug testing. They could come to your house at any time. So you have to be very careful. You have to document everything.
Like even in the off season, or is there an off season, like leading up to the next Olympics, even at that point you have to?
Yep. As long as you're an athlete in a national team program, there are different rules, whether you are in competition or out of competition. Mm-hmm. So there are different rules in terms of what you can take when, but there's substances that are always banned, right? Yes. So as long as you are on the national team roster, you are a carded athlete for a national team all year round, because that is an all year round commitment. So even on your off season, you have to be very careful what you put into your mouth. Mm-hmm. And it gets a little bit draining sometimes because you're like, can't have that. Well, I'll, wait till I get home and I can have my sport approved drink. But it's training. It's a lot of mental preparation. Our teams have been really awesome about reading books that have really kind of opened our eyes into a growth mindset on the field and knowing that we're just trying to get better. But it's really an amazing life. I'll be honest. I have no complaints.
What did you love the most about it? Being a part of that team.
I love playing. I love being on a team. There's just something that you can almost take from childhood. We talk as adults right now, everybody would love to go back and be on a team. It's just that cohesion, the striving for a goal. I love being on a team. And since I did have a huge break between I got to be on one again, I see it, I really, really know how much I love to be on a team. And it's just love for the sport.
Okay, so you've won Olympics under your belt. Were there any big takeaways from that Olympics? Did it light a fire under you for the next one, or what do you remember? And you're saying, yes.
Yeah. We came fifth, and I remember thinking we're gonna medal next time.
Okay.
And I knew I had a lot of areas that I needed to get better on, and it totally did. And our next quad cycle brought up some really awesome players, and we were like really excited, legit chance to medal, awesome team, worked our butts off. I had gotten married in between there. That was a little bit dicey, not for any other reason, but when you train for an Olympics, it's very intense. And during an Olympic year, you're gone most of the year. So starting in January or February. I got married and then I was gone. And so, you know, I had one Olympics as Bay. I have one Olympics as Regula.
Oh my gosh.
But it was really, it was a little tough because I was kind of moving on in my life. That, you know, I was one of the older players, and, but it also shows the commitment.
When you say older players, how old were you? Like, what's old? Give us perspective.
27. I was
27. Okay. So has anyone asked you on your team, like, why are you choosing to get married now? Why don't you just wait?
No one asked that, actually.
Okay, that's good. So they were supportive?
Yep, 100% supportive. And I think everybody knew it was still my focus. Like I had gotten married, but it was still my focus. And I'll give huge credit to my husband at this point, because it is not easy to get married and then say, you know, a year later, well, I'll see you on weekends every now and then for almost 6-7 months. But
he's always been your rock, right?
Always.
Yes.
Yes. He's been, yes.
Okay, so take us there. Second Olympics, what happened there and what was that experience like?
Second Olympics, it was rocky, and we had an opportunity. We were in the bronze medal game, exactly where we wanted to be.
And this was where again? What location?
This was in Beijing.
Beijing, right. Okay.
Yep. And our team cohesion wasn't the best. So we were fighting a little bit of, you know, it was a little bit of a tougher time on the field, and it was just a rocky Olympics, and we ended up losing that bronze medal game. And yes, we lost it. So we came 5th in 2004. We came 4th in 2008.
Oh my gosh.
And the only shots that I ever see, I mean, I was hysterical. I couldn't breathe. I was hysterical. I was pitching, and we had lost to Australia, and basically the culmination of everything I ever worked for. I knew this was it. This was it. We were so close. We had it, you know, within our grasp. We were actually up in the game, and everything I had worked for. And it was just gone. And I was devastated. I can't even describe to you how devastated. I mean, I can't even describe to you. It tore my soul out.
Because
that was my whole life. It was my whole life. It was my whole dream. I felt responsible. I had given up a hit. I can still see that pitch, and I see it often. And I'm 38 years old, and that happened 11 years ago now. And I know, and I wish I could get it back. But I almost didn't know that that's who I was forever. Lauren, the softball player, and it's over, and it didn't end the way I wanted to end. And I don't have an opportunity to go back and try and take that back. Like it's done. And so I put my glove away. And when I say I put my glove away, I did not touch it. I was bitter. I was crushed. I was every negative emotion that when I even thought about softball, it just did not feel good. And so my glove went away. I put all my Olympic stuff away. I never watched a game. I never took out nothing. I just needed to try and move on. And I didn't take a glove out till 2016.
Whoa. Okay. So I know you do a ton of guest speaking. When you go into schools now and you talk to students, what message do you bring them about that experience?
Well, now that I'm removed, I see all of the positives that I couldn't see when you were just so up close and involved in something. And I've definitely let a lot of that go. But every time I talk to kids, and I love talking to kids, I just talk about, you can only do what you can do. And if you don't find the love in it, you'll probably find the love in something else, because there's something out there that you're going to love. And no matter what the outcome is, because I was so focused on the outcome, But the outcome is literally, that was one game in my entire career. One game. I had an entire career that I could have looked back on and been so thankful for and thought of all the great things. But if you need to love what you're doing, because at any one given moment, that doesn't define how that journey had gone. And all of the life lessons that I have learned while playing my sport, while losing, because you learn a lot of life lessons more than when you win. So I just try and let them know that it is just so important to not focus on that one given moment.
So many takeaways in that. We're going to talk about life lessons a little bit later, but so you put your glove away and then you went down the journey of life, or life took you on a different path. And that's when kids came into the picture. So tell us about that.
Yeah. So we had 3 kids in 3 years. So after the Olympics, I had Grace 1 year after the Olympics, almost to the day, August 14th, 2009.
Wow.
Yeah, we were ready to have kids. And, I made that mistake that a lot of parents do before you have kids. You're like, oh, it's not going to be that bad. Of course, I'm going to be fine on late nights because, I've traveled internationally so much. I've stayed up 24 hours on flights and like you can't even prepare for right? So I think going into having kids, my big takeaway was you never know till you know.
But you don't know what you don't know, right?
Totally. Even when you think you do, and I think most people who think they do, those are the ones that actually know nothing.
Mm-hmm. But come on, 3 kids in 3 years, Miss High Achiever?
Yes. So, just staying with a theme on, work. Yeah. So we had 3 kids in 3 years. Grace was born August 14th, 2009. Will was born August 17th, 2012. And we had Jack right smack dab in the middle. So, great. A lot of parents can understand this. I felt fine with Grace. I think I even jinxed myself and said out loud, oh, I think I was meant to have kids. And, my following pregnancies did not go as well, nor did my mental health.
Okay. And what happened there? That was after baby number 2.
Yeah. Baby number 2, I suffered from some pretty significant postpartum depression. However, I didn't know. I didn't know what was normal. I didn't know what was not normal. I just thought I wasn't feeling well. But I didn't think that much of it. I just knew I wasn't happy and things were not going well.
I want to hold space for you in this regard. I really appreciate you sharing this vulnerability with us, because I can relate. And I talked about that in my podcast. I had some pretty intense postpartum depression after my first son, but I was the same. And I didn't want to talk to anyone about it at the time because I felt that I would be looked at as weak. And that I thought something was off, but I didn't really understand it at the time. And my sisters would call and I'd mute the phone and I'd be crying in the background. And now I understand it's a point of strength to talk about it and empower other women to know that if they go through this, listen, our hormones are taking a beating at the time. So you went through that, and how bad was it? How long did it last?
So I had it after Jack was born. That was 2011. I also had it after Will was born, which was, a year and a half later, significantly. And mine lasted for 6 years, and I'll probably start crying, but, it really, I can't describe, I can, and it's not pretty, but it was in waves. It wasn't straight. It came in waves and left in waves, but it took me 6 years and a lot of work to kind of pull myself out of the depths of severe depression. I was not well. I didn't even want to live. I was diagnosed officially as, passively suicidal. I couldn't understand why people wanted to live. I could barely function. And it went on, and it was crazy. It went on for 6 years until my husband was the catalyst and was like, something has to happen. He called a therapist. I lost my mind because we live in a small town now, and I was embarrassed. I was ashamed. I didn't understand what was wrong with me. I had everything I wanted in life. I had healthy kids. I had everything I wanted. So then the guilt made me feel even worse. And it was just a death spiral. It just never ended. And so my husband made the call in 2018 and helped me go get my blood checked and helped me get set up with a therapist. And from there, it was just months of constantly working on getting out of those negative thought loops and working myself into a position where I am today.
Did your blood tell the whole story? Did it show that your hormones were out of whack and that you needed medication to help you through?
Big time. It did. So my hormones, and I went to a couple different doctors. Here I am trying to be strong, going, I don't want medication. I don't want help. I don't want any of it. I had a meltdown. I don't want to be beholden to something for the rest of my life. I mean, I can do it. And what would happen, and I don't know, I'm sure a lot of women can relate to this. I would be feeling so poorly. And then I would come out of it a little bit. And in my head, I'd go, okay, this is it. I don't need any help. I don't need any. I think I'm going to make it through. And then I wouldn't get the help when I actually was in my right mind, because I thought this was it. Like, this was really the time that I was going to pull out of it forever. Mm-hmm. And then I would spiral into another severe depressive episode. And at that point, you don't want help. I know I didn't want help. Yeah. I told my husband, the amount of times I've said there's something wrong with me, I think I'm broken, was if I had a penny or a nickel, I mean, I said it all the time. And one thing that I hope some people can relate to, I was so resistant on getting help, because if that help didn't work, that was kind of my parachute. Right. So I remember thinking, especially when I was not doing well and I was in a bad place, if I tried to go to therapy, or say I even tried to go get some type of medication and it didn't help, then it would have I was so afraid of what I would have done at that point, because at least if I knew I had an opportunity to do something that was always in my back pocket, and I didn't want to burn my last lifeline, because that essentially was my lifeline. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So,
does that make sense?
It absolutely does. And I'm sure too, does it play into it at all? The thinking that you're an Olympic athlete, a 2-time Olympic athlete. You shouldn't be going through this. Was that a part of the story you were telling yourself in your head?
I think part of the story was all of it, not necessarily just the Olympic athlete part. It was, I have everything I want in life. And yes, I when people look at me from the outside, yes, like I should have everything. And yes, I made it to the Olympics. And yes, I, have this great business and I have the best husband and the best kids. I looked at it as a package. But to be honest, I was looking at myself in such a negative light. I mean, I was scared of my own shadow. I came from being, Lauren, who rocked this quiet confidence. I was never cocky, but I was always very comfortable in my own skin. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden I questioned everything. I had no self-confidence. Sometimes I was like, I don't even think I'm making the kids' lunches right. Oh my gosh, I should change the kids' lunches. Like every single thing I did, my husband would say to me, the two things that we had talked about, and the 2 quotes that were said in our house so many times, was me saying, something's wrong with me. I'm broken and I don't think I'm able to be fixed. And he would say to me, Lauren, don't forget who you are, because I would be hurled up, huddled up on the couch, just unsure of what I was even supposed to be doing. And from the outside, I played that off really well. I'm really good at faking it. There were times that I was a very high functioning in a depressive episode. Right. And there was also times where, and people who actually come to our gym will say, I disappeared for weeks, months, just could barely even wake up. Was it during that time that you were going through this that you opened your gym and your whole company? Yeah. So through my therapy sessions, I'm kind of learning, we opened it in 2015, but I think the stress of everything
Yes.
when I would start to get into some type of depressive episode, that just buried me further. And as a small business owner, we have 3 kids. You know, we moved our whole life. We have my friends. I left everything I knew. And the stress of a small business owner is no joke. You know, people are like, "Oh, this is great. You're doing, you know, what you love," and it is, but it comes with a lot of emotional kind of on taking. And over the course of 2015, 2016, by 2017, I was not, like, probably the worst I had been. And 2018 is when, you know, my darling husband, Dave, ended up calling all the help that I needed to, because it was getting really severe.
When did you find the surface of the water again and start to feel more like you?
So once I got my blood work and I got in to see my therapist, it took about 6 months of kind of playing around in terms of, you know, for example, my thyroid, you know, that was something that has always come up, and I was resistant on medication. So I just tried a bunch of different things. I'm going to do a thyroid support. I'm going to do, you know, I did all the natural stuff. And it took me about 6 months to actually play around and see what helped. And even with therapy sessions, it's crazy when you go to a therapist. It took me about a month before I was completely honest. Even with her, I really still tried to sugarcoat everything. And then finally it hit me that I wasn't okay, and she's not going to judge me. And if I'm going to come see her and spend this hour with her, I need help. But it took me probably 6 months of working really, really hard through those sessions and getting my blood work checked regularly to just kind of finish where I needed to. And then on top of it, my husband was so awesome. He really helped me when I didn't want to, you know, go for walks and get my journaling in. And I just started to create some habits. And over 6 months, I feel like it pulled me out. And now I am back to my old self.
Back to your old self. In the midst of that, or was it at the end of that, you also had another health scare, because there's a huge history of cancer in your family?
Yes. So luckily, I got the news that our family had tested positive for the breast cancer gene, the number 1, BRCA1. And that meant that I had a 50% chance as well of having this gene. And luckily for me, I was feeling better, because that still put me into a tailspin. I still was in but I felt like a normal person that would be concerned about having the BRCA gene. And the BRCA, this one, you know, at first when my parents told me, I just kind of looked at them, and my mom goes, the Angelina Jolie, you know, because I'm like, what does that mean? And, you know, her situation has obviously been very highly publicized. And so I thought, oh, like a gene mutation. And then I just went into what you should never do, is Google everything.
Yes.
And
we all do it.
Yep. It took me, I mean, I Googled double mastectomies. I Googled nipple tattoos and what happens if you get your ovaries out, because with this particular gene, what the stats are as of right now, it's an 87% chance of breast cancer and a 50% chance of ovarian cancer.
Oh my gosh.
And I knew I had a 50% chance of having that. So I knew if I had it, I would need to have some surgery. So I wasn't leaving anything to chance. So I Googled everything. And, you know, there was a point in that 4 months that I had talked myself into thinking I had cancer. I didn't know. And I'm like, what if I have this gene? What if I do have cancer? I have not had a mammogram. And the not knowing it turns you sideways. But not nearly as much as it would have had I not already been feeling like myself.
Right. But the results came back good. There's no, you tested negative for the gene, right?
Correct. I have no gene mutation. And I remember getting the news and I just started bawling. I think everything just kind of hit me. I bawled for probably 30 minutes, hysterically shaking. And I felt such a relief, but I also just felt the weight. I was exhausted, but I was so thankful that came back. And it's something that Dave and I talk about all the time. You know, every once in a while, if we're having a really tough day, he'll say, you know what? Think about how different our lives could be right now.
Right. It's
If
great
that test
perspective.
Yeah.
I want to talk, while you brought up Dave, and the three of you, you have your business, you have your three children. Tell me something that you guys do on a regular basis. How do you keep everything in balance when you're all going different directions? Is there something you do that you can share with us that keeps life on track?
So one thing that my husband and I, again, a lot of it had to do with him helping me come out of my really down and dark moments. But one thing that we do is we weekly plan, and we weekly plan together. And it is something that has completely changed our life as a family because we are so busy. But every Sunday we sit down and we plot out our family time. And that's besides our very set in stone meetings that we have to do for work. Our family time always goes in there first. And that is whatever our kids' sports are, you know, pizza night and movie night as a family, but we actually write it in family time. It is a non-negotiable block.
Oh, wow.
The next thing we do is write in our date night, because for Dave and I, having that connection and having that foundation for our family, it is so easy to just say, oh, well, we'll do it later. We'll do, you know, it's so easy to put yourself on the bottom, right? And for us, that's non-negotiable. It is. And if we can't get a date night in, then it's date coffee, whether it's in the morning or at noon, at lunchtime.
So you schedule it.
Literally schedule. So it sounds crazy, but it allows us to be present, because when we're at work, if I don't know when I'm getting my family time in, if it's just left to, well, we'll figure it out when we figure it out, it won't happen. You know, someone had said to me once, show me your calendar and I'll show you your priorities. And I looked at my calendar and it was only work. And then I had, I start crying because I was like, but I, love my kids and I want.
Yeah.
So we started putting that in there, and I schedule nothing for it. It is absolutely non-negotiable, but it allows me to be present at work because I know what your week is going to look like. And then it allows me to be present with the kids. I'm not on my phone looking for stuff because I know at 8 a.m., as soon as they get on the bus, here's my work schedule. So it just really has helped us a lot.
Lauren, I love this. When you said it might sound ridiculous, it's not. It's so smart because it does. That's the bottom line. Allows you to be present when you can know in your mind that this hour is for family, this hour is for work, instead of being so scattered. This is fantastic advice. I'm ripping this off from you. This is brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing that regard. It's so many takeaways there. Now I want to go. So life's going along. You're feeling well. Tests come back for cancer for the G negative. And all of a sudden now, and I'm going to bring this up because you did, but it is part of the narrative here. You're 38 years old, and age, I'll be the first to say, is just a number, but in this case, it's an interesting number because you have just been given another opportunity of a lifetime because the Olympic team has come calling again. Oh my gosh, tell me what's going on. Tell us all.
Yeah, I'd like to know what's going on too. No, just kidding. I was very fortunate. And here the big takeaway for me is throughout this whole journey of mine, we do own, a fitness business. And I have worked out, right? And I have done what I could to keep myself physically in shape. And trust me, there was plenty of stretches where that was not going to happen and not happening. But the biggest takeaway for me and what we tell people at our business all the time is, take care of yourself so you can leave yourself open for experiences. Just like my dad said, it all ties in. Just like my dad said when you were little, you want to be able to say yes. And so I'm very fortunate. I have definitely kept myself in shape, and especially over the last year. But I have another opportunity. And again, I have to make the most out of this opportunity to try and make my third Olympic roster. And
my gosh.
I'm in shock, to be honest. And there was a lot. It was not an easy decision. And I think this is something I want to give a huge shout out to my husband for, because it seems, oh my gosh, you have a chance to go to the Olympics. Of course you're going to do it. And we have a business and we have 3 kids, and he has gone through an Olympic year with me before, and he knows how hard it is. And we had some of the toughest conversations. I mean, when you want to talk about staying in the fight of a situation and not just saying it's over, we had 2 weeks of duking it out, figuring out if it was possible, doable, that we both were going to be okay with it. If I was going to be okay being gone, he was going to be okay with me being gone. The kids were going to be okay with me being gone. And we had some of the most difficult conversations that we have ever had, the most honest, the most, at times hurtful on both sides, just raw conversations that went deep into the night, because we wanted to make sure we left no stone unturned, and that whatever the answer was the real answer, not a fine, I don't even, it's not even worth it. Like, that wasn't an option. Right. And so we had some of the most difficult conversations, but we both said our piece from our standing, right? I can only see through my lens. I can't really see through his, but I did my best to try, and he did the same. And we're in. Because we are in because it's as a family, and we're both really excited.
Okay, so when you say you're in, you mean you're going to take a shot at the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo, pitching for the Canadian women's softball team at 38 years old. And women are probably going, Carrie, stop making the number a big deal. But this is huge. In a lifetime, your third Olympics. Give me some perspective now how you're feeling.
No, it really is huge, to be honest. I mean, I still sometimes wake up going, is this reality? One of the things that I've really tried to focus on, and again, I find it extremely ironic because of all of the journey that has led up to here. I want to make the most out of my life, because I do feel like there are big chunks of life that I did miss out on. And if you would have asked me if I was in a bad episode, I would have no interest. I was, I had no emotion. I was dead inside. I had no care. And so now that I do, it's almost like it's just so ironic to me, because I went from being scared of my own shadow to literally training my butt off, trying to be one of the best, pitchers in our country. And I am so grateful, so thankful for the opportunity. I am all in. Like, I am so excited about it. But just the way I look at being able to have an opportunity to play on the team, it's so rare to bring our kids along and show them. I want to show them that anything is possible. Like, this is not a normal situation. I would love to show them that anything is possible, to dream big and to bring them on this crazy adventure and have them, be inspired to do whatever they're doing, but at the highest level. And the other thing I'm really inspired to do with this whole situation is I'm inspired to show moms out there that we can be more than just, hey mom, where are my soccer cleats? Hey mom, where's my lunch? Hey mom, what's this? I am so inspired to have, women look at their own lives and say, I've never run a 5K with my kids. I want to run a 5K with my kids. It just it takes on so much more of a meaning than just when I was playing in 2008 and 2004, it was me in softball. Whereas now I want to bring women along, and I want them to open themselves up to their own opportunities and become their own person, because as moms, it's so easy to lose your identity. It's so easy to put you on the bottom of the totem pole and just say, hey, I'll get to myself later. Well, then by the time your kids are out of the house, almost 20 years have passed if you've had, a couple kids, and those 20 years are gone. And I'm so passionate about it. I'm so excited about it. I just want women to say, you know what? I can still be mom and fulfill that role, and I can go do something for me that gives me my own identity.
I love it. I love it so much. But this means now that you're going to be gone a lot and training a lot. So in a nutshell, take us up to the Olympics, what that's going to look like for you personally and for your family, how much you're going to be gone.
So starting at the end of January, I will be gone 2 weeks with the team and then home 2 weeks. And I'm thankful for that, for Team Canada to allow that, because family, obviously, being gone for a whole year, that takes, me out of the equation. So I'll be with the team 2 weeks, home 2 weeks, on and off until about May. And then once May, June, July hit, I don't know the schedule in terms of, I don't know when I'll be able to come back. We do, a trip to Japan in there before even the Olympics.
Yes.
But once May hits, like, it is, at that point, softball is my priority. It's not my highest value, but it's that short amount of window that it is time to really focus and get ready for Tokyo.
I love how you framed that. And I mean, it's going to be, as you mentioned, such an incredible experience for your kids too, to watch mom on the mound and go through all of this. But I want to talk about this because this is important. It has not come without criticism, because you've been criticized by women around you, and you said you were shocked by their reaction. I want to shine a light on this, because it's these moments that we as women need to lift each other up and celebrate these successes instead of tear each other down. And that didn't happen to you. Tell us about it.
Yeah. And so I knew in making this decision, my husband had said to me, you're going to be judged in both lights. You're going to be judged on the negative, and you're going to be judged where people think it's positive. And one of the first comments when I had mentioned that I was going to go back and try and play in 2020 was just are your kids going to be okay? And it was said in a way that was like I was doing something intentionally to harm my kids. And it really bothered me. This is something I talked to my therapist about. I think I walked in, immediately sat down and went, are my kids going to be okay? Because it kind of got into my head. And there have just been a couple of comments, and the undertones of some you can tell are a little bit negative. There are ones that people just ask questions kind of like, oh gosh, that's a long time to be away. And, I'm like, I know, I know it's a long time to be away. I am taking care of everything I possibly can. I've signed up for everything in our kids' school that I know I'm going to be around for. But I know it's going to be hard, but because it's hard doesn't mean it's a reason not to do it. And so there were a few times where some comments were made, and I did question myself. There was one point where I was like, oh my gosh, is this really not good for my family? But I also have had some, a lot of people be very supportive. It's crazy though, because it's so crazy how one comment on the start of your day can get into that brain of yours and then make you question yourself.
But I really appreciate you sharing that, because it's important to talk about it, because we have to think before we make comments like that. And I think women especially, like I said, let's really try to lift each other up in these moments that are super special, because you're on, again, a journey of a lifetime right now. And it's so different to be heading to the Olympics, like you said, at this point in your life than you have in years previous. The goal, Lauren, quickly, for this Olympics, third time around, what's the goal in your head?
Gold medal.
Yes.
So our team has continued to get stronger. I have the most respect for our teammates. There are a ton of players that were playing when the Olympics wasn't an option. And that just shows their heart. They were staying in it because of their love. And I know I talk about that a lot, but when there's no Olympics, it's easy for people to say, well, the pinnacle of what I wanted to do isn't there, so I'm just going to move on with my life. And there's so many of these girls on that team that didn't do that. And I think I'm more excited for them right now to have stayed with the program for so long and get to make it to their dream that wasn't even a dream until a couple years ago, or wasn't a possibility. And so I'm so proud of our country's program, because they have continued to get better. And I can honestly say that we are definitely gold medal potential. And I've never been able to say that before.
Wow. We are all going to be cheering you on and watching you closely, because of course we all want you to achieve that goal. Well, for everyone listening today and had the opportunity to get to know you a little better, what do you want them to take away from your journey? What are some of your biggest learnings? I talked about those life lessons a little bit earlier.
Enjoy the ride. And it's and I'm working on this every day, because every day I feel like I should be pitching, working out, being a mom, business. At the end of the day, you can only be where your feet are, and enjoy every moment. And I know there are going to be tough moments, But if we can find the good in those tough moments, because there always are, it doesn't matter. We're not looking at the end point. Of course, there's a goal, but if we can just enjoy and be present every day, the happiness that we have is just off the charts.
Lauren, where can people find you on social media and
They can
on
find
website?
me. So www.trakathletics.com is our company's website. And they can find me on Instagram at Lauren Regula. And same on Facebook.
Can you spell that for me, please?
Yes, Lauren Regula, LAURENREGULA.
Greatest accomplishment to date? I mean, how do you pick? You have 3 Olympics, so many things. What would you call it? What is your greatest accomplishment?
My greatest accomplishment today is honestly just being happy.
Wow.
To be honest.
Mm-hmm. You are a beautiful example of balance and harmony and somehow managing to fit it all in. But at the end of the day, that you said your greatest accomplishment is being happy. We have so much to learn from you and your journey and all that you've experienced and accomplished. And I want to say on behalf of all Canadians, thank you for doing such a beautiful job over the span of almost 3 decades and representing us so well. We're going to be watching. We're going to be cheering for you. You are such a great example of what that Canadian Maple Leaf stands for. Thank you so much for stepping into the inner circle. Thank you for your vulnerability and showing us that at the end of the day, that vulnerability is courage and strength. Good luck in the Olympics. Your kids are going to be fine, you know that, and we're all going to be cheering for you. Thank you so much for this conversation, Lauren.
Thank you, Carrie.